Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena, December 8, 1988. Outside, the California night was unusually cool, the air crisp with the promise of winter. Inside, 18,000 people had gathered in the cavernous space, their collective body heat creating a warmth that contrasted with the chill beyond the walls. The arena hummed with anticipation, that peculiar electricity that precedes something extraordinary. It was the final American date of Michael Jackson's record-breaking Bad World Tour, and everyone present knew they were witnessing history. What they couldn't know, was that they were about to experience something transcendent, a moment that would stay with them long after the melodies had faded from their ears. 18,000 heartbeats synchronized in anticipation. 18,000 pairs of eyes fixed on the empty stage, currently obscured by an enormous black curtain emblazoned with the iconic Bad logo in defiant red letters. The air smelled of perfume, cologne, and excitement, that indefinable scent of human anticipation. The crowd had been waiting for 20 minutes since the opening act concluded, their impatience gradually building into a kind of communal ecstasy of expectation. Suddenly, the lights dimmed completely, plunging the arena into darkness so absolute it seemed to swallow sound itself. For 3 breathless seconds, nothing existed but the darkness and the palpable anticipation of 18,000 souls. Then, a single beam of white light pierced the blackness, illuminating nothing but dust particles dancing in its harsh glow. The crowd roared, a wall of sound that physically pushed against the eardrums. Another beam joined the first, then another, creating a choreography of light that seemed to search the arena for something or someone. The opening synth notes of "Wanna Be Starting Something" exploded through the sound system with such clarity and force that people felt it in their chest cavities before their ears registered the sound. The curtain dropped in one smooth motion, revealing a stage transformed into another world entirely. A landscape of platforms, ramps, and hidden trapdoors that would facilitate the magic about to unfold. For a breathless moment, the stage remained empty despite the music building to its iconic crescendo. And then, as if materialized from the collective desire of 18,000 beating hearts, Michael Jackson rose from beneath the stage, elevated on a hidden platform, his silhouette instantly recognizable even before the lights found him. The silhouette held its pose, feet planted shoulder-width apart, one arm extended toward the sky, head slightly bowed, for a perfect 3 count before the lights revealed him in his full glory. Michael stood resplendent in a black leather jacket adorned with gleaming silver buckles, matching pants that caught the light with every subtle movement, and the iconic single white glove that had become as synonymous with his image as the moonwalk itself. The roar that greeted his appearance wasn't just the standard enthusiasm of a crowd seeing a beloved performer. It was something primal, almost religious, the sound of 18,000 people experiencing collective catharsis, of boundaries dissolving between performer and audience until they became a single organism pulsing with shared purpose. For the next hour, Michael commanded the stage with supernatural precision. Each movement, each note, each carefully choreographed sequence executed with such perfection that it seemed to exist outside the realm of human capability. The audience was entranced, caught in the spell of witnessing something they intrinsically understood they would measure all future experiences against. They didn't just watch the performance. They lived inside it, became part of it, their energy feeding Michael's seemingly boundless reservoir of creative power. After completing a particularly demanding sequence during Beat It, Michael paused at center stage, allowing the band to continue the instrumental bridge. His chest heaved with exertion, sweat glistening on his face under the harsh stage lights. But his eyes remained clear and focused, windows to the soul of an artist operating at the absolute zenith of his powers. He raised a hand, and somehow, through some alchemy of charisma and earned authority, the band immediately understood the unspoken command. The music softened, the driving beat becoming more subdued without losing its essential rhythm. A curious murmur rippled through the crowd. This wasn't part of the carefully choreographed show they'd expected. Those who had attended previous performances on the tour exchanged puzzled glances. Something unscripted was happening. Michael stepped toward the front of the stage, his movements suddenly more human, less part of the superhuman performance persona he'd inhabited moments before. He gestured to his sound engineer, miming an adjustment to his earpiece. The music softened further until it was just a heartbeat of percussion and a whisper of synthesizer. "I want to take a moment," Michael said, his speaking voice so rarely heard during performances that its softness startled many in the audience. The natural, gentle timbre contrasted sharply with his powerful singing voice. "Today is December 8th. He paused, and a hush fell over the arena, 18,000 people collectively holding their breath. Those who immediately recognized the significance of the date felt a chill despite the warmth of the crowded space. 8 years ago today, we lost John Lennon. The name hung in the air, almost visible in its impact. Some in the audience immediately lowered their heads. Others reached for the hands of those beside them. The younger attendees, those who had been children or not yet born when Lennon was murdered, looked to their older companions for context, sensing the weight of the moment even without fully understanding its significance. "John was a man who believed in love," Michael continued, his voice gaining strength even as it maintained its gentle quality. "He believed in peace. He believed that music could change the world." Michael paused, his eyes scanning the audience with an intensity that made many feel he was looking directly at them. "I had the privilege of meeting John only once, briefly, at a party in New York in 1977. I was still very young, still finding my way as a solo artist. He could have been dismissive. Many established artists were when meeting someone they might have seen as just the kid from the Jackson 5. A small, surprisingly vulnerable smile played across Michael's features, humanizing the almost mythological figure he had become. Instead, he spent 15 minutes talking to me about songwriting. Not the business of it, not the fame, but the heart of it. How to speak truth through melody, how to remain authentic in an industry that often pushes against authenticity. The arena remained silent. 18,000 people united in collective listening, a rare moment of perfect communion between audience and artist. He told me something I've never forgotten. He said, "Music is the only religion that delivers the goods." And he was right. When everything else falls away, politics, boundaries, prejudices, music remains, speaking directly from one heart to another. Michael paused, seeming to gather himself. The vulnerability that had shown through his carefully constructed performance persona moments before was gradually replaced by something else. Not the return of the superhuman entertainer, but something new. Michael as vessel, as conduit for something larger than himself. "Tonight, I'd like to honor John in the way I believe he would have appreciated most. Not with speeches, but with music. Not with elaborate production, but with something simple and true." He turned and nodded to his band members, who exchanged glances of surprise. This was clearly unplanned, a deviation from the meticulous set list that had governed every previous performance. The keyboard player hesitantly began a gentle, haunting melody, not a Lennon song, but something that captured the essence of his more introspective work. The drummer added the softest heartbeat of rhythm, just enough to support without overwhelming. For a moment, Michael stood absolutely still, his eyes closed, seemingly gathering something from within. When he began to sing, it wasn't with the powerful, dynamic voice that had electrified the arena moments before. Instead, he sang almost as if to himself, with a raw vulnerability that few in the audience had ever associated with the king of pop. He didn't perform a Lennon song, perhaps understanding instinctively that would have seemed presumptuous. Instead, he sang a song of his own, one that had never been released, never been heard by the public. Later, his musical director would reveal it was something Michael had written years earlier but had kept private, considering it too personal for commercial release. The lyrics spoke of loss and legacy, of voices that continue to echo long after they've been silenced, of the responsibility of those left behind to carry messages of love forward. Michael sang without choreography, without the elaborate production elements that typically characterize his performances. He simply stood, sometimes with eyes closed, sometimes gazing out at the silent audience, his voice carrying the only message that mattered in that moment. As the song reached its bridge, something extraordinary happened. Michael gestured subtly to his lighting director, and suddenly, 18,000 small lights began to glow throughout the arena. Under each seat, the production team had secretly taped a small battery-powered candle, technology that would seem primitive by later standards, but was innovative for 1988. The effect was breathtaking, transforming the cavernous space into a field of earthbound stars. The audience gasped collectively as they discovered the lights beneath their seats and held them aloft without prompting. Michael continued singing as the arena became a constellation of remembrance, his voice now barely above a whisper, yet somehow reaching every corner of the vast space. If this story moves you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful moments that reveal the heart behind the legend of Michael Jackson. Moments when the performer became simply human, sharing his truth with those willing to listen. As the song drew to its conclusion, Michael finally allowed his own emotions to surface completely. A single tear tracked down his cheek, catching the light before falling to the stage. That tear, witnessed by those closest to the stage and captured by the cameras projecting his image onto the massive screens flanking the stage, became the permission 18,000 people needed to release their own emotions. Throughout the arena, strangers embraced, friends held hands, parents pulled children close. The shared catharsis was palpable, a collective emotional release that transcended the normal boundaries of a concert experience. When the final note faded, Michael didn't immediately speak. He allowed the silence to exist, to breathe, to become its own kind of music. After what seemed like both an eternity and no time at all, he reached into the pocket of his jacket and withdrew something small enough to be concealed in his palm. He opened his hand to reveal a small white feather. John once told an interviewer that if he died, he would send a sign to those he loved, a white feather. Michael explained, his voice steady despite the emotion evident on his face. I found this backstage just before the show began, resting on top of my costume. He held the feather toward the audience. I'm not saying it came from John. I'm saying it reminded me of him, of his belief that love is the answer to questions we haven't even thought to ask yet. Michael gently placed the feather at the very edge of the stage, a small white beacon against the black surface. For John, he said simply. Then, with a nod to his band, the opening notes of Man in the Mirror filled the arena. The transition from the raw intimacy of the previous moment to the anthemic power of one of his most uplifting songs might have seemed jarring in less skilled hands. But Michael understood instinctively what the audience needed. Not to remain in the space of grief, but to be lifted toward hope, toward action, toward the belief that individual choices could indeed create collective change. By the final chorus, 18,000 voices had joined Michael's. The arena vibrating with the sound of a temporary community united in something larger than themselves. The candles remained lit throughout, 18,000 points of light swaying in time to the message of personal responsibility and transformation. As the song concluded, Michael didn't take his customary bow. Instead, he knelt at the edge of the stage and gently picked up the white feather. With ceremonial deliberateness, he placed it in a small silver case that his assistant had brought to the side of the stage. The case disappeared backstage, carried reverently by the assistant, as if it contained something of immeasurable value. The remainder of the concert continued according to the established set list, but something fundamental had shifted in the relationship between performer and audience. The invisible barrier that typically exists, even with a performer as skilled a connection as Michael Jackson, had dissolved completely. Each song that followed seemed infused with additional meaning, the elaborate production elements and virtuosic dance sequences serving the emotional truth rather than merely showcasing spectacular talent. When the final encore concluded and Michael took his last bow, the audience remained in place, reluctant to break the spell of what they had experienced together. Many lingered in their seats long after the house lights came up, speaking in hushed tones about what they had witnessed. Outside the arena, fans gathered in spontaneous circles, some singing Lennon songs, others simply sharing their reactions to the unexpected emotional journey the evening had provided. In the days that followed, the moment was mentioned in reviews almost as a footnote. Jackson also performed an unexpected tribute to John Lennon. The words inadequate to capture what had transpired in that sacred space between artist and audience. Those who had been present, however, understood they had witnessed something that transcended entertainment, something that couldn't be adequately conveyed through description. It had to be experienced to be understood. The small silver case containing the white feather traveled with Michael for the remainder of the tour. Before each performance, according to one of his backup dancers who later shared the story, Michael would open the case privately, look at the feather for a moment, then close it without comment. When the tour eventually concluded, after 123 performances across 15 countries, the silver case didn't return to storage with the other tour memorabilia. Instead, it found a permanent place on Michael's bedside table at Neverland Ranch, a private reminder of a public moment when artifice had fallen away, revealing the beating heart beneath the carefully constructed persona of the world's biggest superstar. 17 years later, long after Michael himself had left this world, a small package arrived at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. It contained the silver case, the white feather still nestled inside, and a brief, typewritten note that simply read, December 8th, 1988. For John, for Michael, for all of us who believe music can change the world. The case was placed in a special exhibition dedicated to moments when music transcended entertainment to become communion. Each day, visitors pause before it, reading the small placard that explains its significance. Most weren't present at the Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena that December night. They didn't witness 18,000 people united in grief and hope. They didn't see a single tear track down the face of a man who had seemed more myth than human. They didn't hear the raw vulnerability in a voice typically known for its polished perfection. But somehow they understand. Standing before that small white feather, preserved for posterity in its silver case, they feel an echo of what transpired. The moment when Michael Jackson stopped his entire show to honor John Lennon, and what happened next left 18,000 people in tears. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to be reminded of the power of music to heal and unite, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that reveal the man behind the legend. The moments when Michael Jackson transcended entertainment to create genuine human connection.